Welcome to SMR Bitesize. Thought for Thursdays coming up. But before that, if you like what we're doing, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Well, I'll tell you what we're thinking about on a Thursday this week, and it's the Privileges Committee's report into Boris Johnson. We're going to briefly consider what the report's findings were, as if you don't already know, but the bulk of this video is going to be made up of our analysis of the various responses to it. They're all tremendously telling, in some cases fascinating, insightful, and in others deeply, deeply worrying. In a couple of cases, they may even be contempts of Parliament themselves. But we'll get to that. And now it's official. The truth can be told both outside and inside Parliament. And there was no stopping Thangam Debonair today.
Boris Johnson lied. He lied to MPs. He lied to the people of this country. He lied to nurses, doctors, care workers, bus drivers, everyone who was putting their own lives at risk during the pandemic. Why does this matter, Mr. Speaker? Because people sacrificed so much, and they deserved a Prime Minister who values truth and honour, one who leads by example, and it turns out they didn't have one.
In short, the Conservative Majority Committee, chaired by Harriet Harman, found the former Prime Minister deliberately misled the House, deliberately misled the committee, breached confidence, impugned the committee and thereby undermined the democratic process of the House, and was complicit in a campaign of abuse and attempted intimidation of that committee. They recommended his suspension from the House for an unprecedented 90 days, which of course would have led to a recall petition had he not resigned, and that he not be granted a former member's pass. Harriet Harman, to the best of our knowledge, didn't get a vote as chair of the committee and only would have done had the other 6 members failed to reach a verdict. But the bombshell report went down with all parties, pretty much as you might expect. The now officially disgraced former Prime Minister was livid. Rubbish, a lie, deranged, patently absurd, a load of complete tripe, and a twisted charade. Once again, as with his previous statement, singling out the chair Harriet Harman for special mention. And then, towards the end of his increasingly unhinged rant, he referred to it making arguments so threadbare that they belonged in one of Bernard Jenkins' nudist colonies. The Tory MP, who he'd acknowledged earlier in his considered response as being someone who'd always had it in for him. Among many others, both astonished at the report itself and the former Prime Minister's response to it, was Angela Rayner, convinced the public could now see through his clown act and that, frankly, he was banged to rights. Former Tory MP and Attorney General Dominic Grieve claimed this was a dreadful day for democracy, aghast at a former Prime Minister attacking Parliament and its sovereignty, something he claimed to be so important to him. Until it wasn't. He accused Johnson of throwing up smokescreens in all directions, while Labour's Chris Bryant accused him of throwing his toys out of his pram in a tantrum, labelling him a disgraced Prime Minister who should be stripped of everything. Something we'll come back to in just a bit. But wait, unbelievably, despite the findings of the committee, there were still those prepared to bat for Johnson. Mad Nads claimed the report was overreaching, bizarre, saying that any Tory MP voting for it could hardly claim themselves a Conservative. She even threatened the committee with a dose of real justice, whatever that is. And it got crazier still. She's keeping a beady eye on the Conservative members of the committee, and she suspects foul play. Were promises made? Will gongs be forthcoming? And as Eddie Murphy points out, she wasn't alone in labelling the committee a kangaroo court. Wonder where she got that from. Jacob Rees-Mogg even retweeted conspiracy theorist far-right nutjobs Guido Fawkes, and in doing so completely missed the entire point of what the committee was set up to determine. Jacob, you can lay off your gaslighting whataboutery. It wasn't about the fact that there were parties, we know that. It was about whether Johnson knew about them and lied knowingly. 2 completely different things. Appearing later that morning on Sky News, he went on to claim,
The worst thing that happened with this, if it fell on your foot, it might give you a bruise, but no more than that.
After which he predicted a 250-seat majority for Rishi Sunak at the next election. Johnson's 2019 landslide, by the way, was 80. Oh, but it got crazier even than that. Brendan Clark-Smith. In a quite extraordinary tweet, the Tory MP claimed to be appalled at what he'd read. and the spiteful, vindictive and overreaching conclusions of the report. He went on to say he wouldn't be supporting the recommendations and would be speaking against them publicly in the House on Monday. But here's the thing, his kangaroo court's punchline, well, surely that would be in contempt of Parliament too. Well, Rishi, is it? Yeah, I think you probably ought to lay low for a couple of days, mate. Not a lot even you can say to polish this turd, is there? And finally, we'll finish up pretty much where we began, with our star of the day, Labour's Thangam Debonair. Supported by an increasing tide of voices, she's not sure that even a report as excoriating as this goes anywhere near far enough. Take a listen.
All brings into question the validity of Johnson's resignation honours list and the Prime Minister's support for it. With a lawbreaker and a liar rewarding his cronies, will the leader call on the Prime Minister to show some leadership for once and cancel these dishonourable honours? So, on the Prime Minister's incredibly poor judgment, is he so out of touch that he thought it was right that taxpayers' hard-earned money fund legal advice for Johnson's lies to the public? A shameful waste of money during a Tory cost of living crisis especially. This was a mess of his making. Does the leader think this was a good use of public money? Will the Prime Minister now demand that Boris Johnson pays back every penny?
Crikey. What are your thoughts? Did the committee go far enough? Or should the Prime Minister, as Beth Rigby typoed earlier today, suffer the additional sanction of explosion? Too harsh? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, visit 16millionrising.co.uk, where you can listen to this week's full radio show for free, support us with a donation, buy us a coffee, or subscribe as an early riser. Back tomorrow.